The ancient dragon awakens in fury, rushing through villages, cities, and castles, spreading ash and fear terrified everyone. The volcanic moon of Charvel hung in the purple sky like a sleeping giant. For 3,000 years, the reptilian people who lived there had protected one sacred rule: never disturb the mountain where the ancient dragon slept. They built their villages in the valleys, their cities on the plains, and their castles on distant hills. But they always stayed away from the smoking mountain called Drithi's Peak. Sarah Chen wiped sweat from her forehead as she checked the seismic equipment one more time. The human geologist had been on Charvel for 6 months, studying the moon's mineral deposits. Her small team of 4 scientists worked carefully, always respectful of local customs. They had permission to survey the eastern valleys, far from any sacred sites. "Readings look good," called Marcus from behind his scanner. "The mineral deposits here are incredible. This survey will make our careers." She had studied geology for 15 years and knew the language of stone and earth. This mountain was trying to tell her something. "Marcus, did you double-check the seismic charge coordinates?" she asked. "Of course," he replied. "We are exactly where the Charvel Council approved, 3 kilometers from any restricted zone." Her hands shook as she pulled up the ancient Charvel maps they had been given. "Stop!" she shouted. "Do not activate the charges." Deep underground, the small explosions that helped their equipment see through rock layers reached something that had been sleeping for millennia. The mountain trembled, then it roared. Sarah fell to her knees as the ground split open. Steam and smoke burst from cracks that appeared like lightning across the valley floor. The sky darkened as ash began to rise in massive clouds. The air filled with a sound that made her bones vibrate, a sound like thunder mixed with the cry of something ancient and angry. "What have we done?" whispered Marcus, his face pale with fear. From the peak of Drithi's mountain, something moved. At first, Sarah thought it was just more smoke and ash, but then she saw the shape, massive beyond belief, rising from the crater. Wings that could cover entire buildings spread wide, sending hurricane winds across the valleys. Scales that looked like volcanic rock reflected the orange glow of lava. Eyes like twin suns opened for the first time in 3,000 years. The dragon had awakened. Drithi's rose into the ash-filled sky with a roar that shook every building on the moon. The creature was larger than the biggest human spacecraft Sarah had ever seen. Its tail alone could crush houses. As it flew, ash and smoke poured from its body like a living storm cloud. In the nearest Charvel village, alarm bells rang across the valley. Sarah watched through her equipment as small figures ran from their homes, loading belongings onto carts and vehicles. Parents carried children. Elders helped each other move as fast as their legs could carry them. Fear spread faster than the ash clouds. "We need to evacuate," said Marcus, grabbing Sarah's arm. "Now." She watched the dragon circle above the mountain, its movements strange and unsteady. It crashed through the air like someone who had forgotten how to fly. It roared again, but this time Sarah heard something besides anger in that terrible sound. She heard confusion. She heard pain. The dragon flew toward the village, and Sarah's heart stopped. But at the last moment, Drithi's turned away, smashing through an abandoned castle on a hillside instead. Stone walls that had stood for centuries crumbled like sand. The dragon continued flying, leaving destruction behind, but somehow avoiding the places where people gathered. "It is not attacking them," Sarah said quietly. "Look at the pattern. It is avoiding the populated areas." The dragon's flight path, the way it moved, the sounds it made. As a scientist, she knew that understanding began with observation. As a human being, she felt responsible for waking this ancient creature from its rest. The Charvel emergency channels filled with panicked voices. Their council demanded answers. Their military activated defensive shields around their capital city. And from orbit, the human diplomatic ship sent urgent messages demanding the research team evacuate immediately. But Sarah made a choice that would change everything. She would not run, she would not hide. She had caused this disaster with her carelessness, and she would find a way to fix it. As her team prepared to leave, Sarah gathered her equipment and supplies. She downloaded every piece of Charvel history she could access. There had to be information about Drithi's, about why the dragon had been sleeping, about what it wanted. In the sky above, the ancient creature flew on, spreading ash and fear across the landscape. Villages emptied. Cities locked their gates. Castles activated ancient defense systems that had not been used in generations. Everyone assumed the dragon had come to destroy them, but Sarah Chen looked at her data and saw something different. She saw a creature that was lost, hurt, and searching for something it could not find. And she knew that sometimes the most human thing a person could do was show compassion to something everyone else feared. The question was whether she could discover the truth before the dragon was destroyed, or before it accidentally hurt someone in its confusion. Time was running out, and the ash clouds were spreading across the entire moon. 3 days after Drethys awakened, the moon of Charvel looked like a world at war. Ash covered everything in gray powder. The sky remained dark even during daytime hours. The dragon continued its path across the landscape, and everywhere it went, destruction followed. Sarah stood in the abandoned research station, surrounded by screens showing news from across the moon. Every channel displayed the same images of panic and fear. Charvel families huddled in emergency shelters. Their military ships tracked the dragon's movements. And from deep space, more warships arrived each hour. She had not slept properly since the awakening. Her eyes burned from staring at ancient texts and historical records. Her team had evacuated back to human space, but Sarah refused to leave. The Charvel Council had declared her unwelcome, blaming humans for this disaster. But one elderly Charvel scholar named Thessic had secretly helped her access the old archives. "You must understand," Thessic had told her through encrypted messages. "My people have forgotten the true history. We remember only fear, not friendship." Protector, healer, bond. On the main screen, live footage showed Drethys approaching the capital city of Velthar. The massive dragon flew low over the countryside, his wings creating storms of debris. Buildings shook from the wind he generated. Millions of Charvel people fled the city in every direction, clogging roads and overwhelming transport systems. Sarah leaned closer to the screen, studying every detail of the dragon's movement. Something was wrong with the way Drethys flew. His left wing moved stiffly, not smoothly like the right one. When he turned, he seemed to struggle with balance, and every few minutes the dragon would pause in midair and look around, as if searching for something he could not find. "He is hurt," Sarah whispered to herself. "And he is lost. Authorization to use heavy weapons has been granted." The Charvel Council had cut off all human communications after declaring them responsible for the crisis. On screen, Drethys suddenly changed direction. Instead of continuing toward the city, he veered east toward a region of ancient ruins. Sarah quickly pulled up maps of that area. Her breath caught in her throat. Those ruins had once been called the Healing Grounds, a place where, according to legend, dragons and Charvel had lived together in peace. The dragon landed heavily in the ruins, crushing stone structures that had stood empty for millennia. He circled the area 3 times, his massive head lowering to sniff at broken pillars and collapsed buildings. Then Drethys released a long, mournful cry that echoed across the entire region. Sarah had studied animal behavior in college. She recognized that sound. It was not anger or rage, it was grief. She opened her secure connection to Thessic. The Healing Grounds. What happened there? Why did the dragons leave? But the effort exhausted them. Drethys' bondmate, a dragon named Sylvath, died from the strain. Drethys chose to sleep in his grief, and we promised to protect his rest forever. He does not know she is gone. His memories are confused from sleeping so long. 3,000 years of sleep had left him weak and disoriented. On another screen, Sarah watched military ships position themselves around the ruins. Weapon systems powered up, ready to fire. The dragon remained in the Healing Grounds, digging through rubble with his massive claws, still searching for something that no longer existed. Sarah made a decision that terrified her. She grabbed her medical kit, loaded it with supplies designed for large animal treatment, and ran to her small transport vehicle. If she could reach the dragon before the military attacked, maybe she could help him. Maybe she could make him understand. The journey to the Healing Grounds took 2 hours. Sarah flew low, avoiding military patrols. Her hands gripped the controls so tightly they ached. She had no weapons, no protection, and no real plan. All she had was data showing that Drethys had once been a friend to the Charvel people, and a belief that compassion could bridge even the widest gaps. As she approached the ruins, the dragon's massive form came into view. Up close, Drethys was even more incredible than she had imagined. His scales reflected light like volcanic glass. His eyes, when they turned toward her small ship, held intelligence and sadness that took her breath away. Sarah landed her vehicle a safe distance away and stepped out. The ground was covered in ash and broken stone. The air smelled of sulfur and age. Above her, the dragon watched, perfectly still except for the rise and fall of his breathing. She reached into her kit and pulled out a piece of cloth. Using paint she had brought, Sarah carefully drew the ancient charval symbol for healing, the same symbol she had seen in the old texts. She held it high above her head. Drithes tilted his massive head, studying the small human standing before him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the dragon lowered his head closer to the ground, his eyes fixed on the symbol Sarah held. Sarah's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The ancient dragon Drithes stood less than 50 meters away, his enormous head lowered toward her. His breath came out in hot waves that made the air shimmer. One wrong move, one sign of threat, and those massive jaws could end her life in seconds. But Sarah did not see a monster. She saw pain in those ancient eyes. "I am sorry," she said softly, knowing the dragon could not understand her words, but hoping her tone carried meaning. "I am sorry we woke you. I am sorry for your loss." Slowly, carefully, he moved his head closer until his massive snout was just meters from where she stood. Sarah could see the damage now. Long scars ran along the dragon's neck and left shoulder-old wounds that had never healed properly. The scales around these injuries looked dull and cracked. When Drithes shifted his weight, he favored his right side. Moving slowly, Sarah set down the cloth and opened her medical kit. She had brought everything she could carry: antiseptic solutions, healing gel designed for reptilian species, diagnostic scanners, and pain medications strong enough for creatures weighing several tons. The dragon watched as she approached with a scanner. Sarah held it up so Drithes could see it clearly. "This will not hurt," she promised. "It just helps me understand what is wrong." 3,000 years of sleep had preserved Drithes' body, but the old wounds had never truly healed. The seismic explosion had torn them open again, and now bacteria and inflammation threatened to spread. "You must be in so much pain," Sarah whispered. "How are you even flying?" She cleaned the wounds with antiseptic that fizzed against the ancient scales. She applied healing gel that would help new tissue grow. She gave the dragon injections of pain medication, using needles designed for treating large alien creatures. Through it all, Drithes remained perfectly still, trusting this small human who had come to him with symbols of peace. As Sarah worked, she talked to him. She told him about Earth, about humans, about her work as a geologist. She explained what had happened, how the explosion was an accident, how sorry she was. The dragon could not understand her words, but he seemed to find her voice soothing. When the sun began to set, casting orange light across the ruins, Sarah sat down on a fallen pillar to rest. Her arms ached from reaching up to treat wounds on a creature so large. Drithes settled down nearby, his massive body curling in a way that reminded Sarah of a sleeping dog. That was when she heard the sounds. Drithes was making small, sad noises while pawing at the ground. Sarah realized he was digging in a specific spot, returning to it again and again. She walked over to see what held his attention. Beneath the ash and rubble, Sarah found fragments of old stone. She brushed away the dirt and discovered carvings, images worn by time but still visible. They showed two dragons flying together, their wings touching. Beneath them, the ancient charval writing spelled out two names, Drithes and Silvith. "This was your home," Sarah said, understanding flooding through her. "This is where you lived with her, with Silvith." He touched the stone gently with one massive claw, making a sound of such profound sadness that Sarah felt tears stream down her face. "She is gone," Sarah said softly. "I am so sorry. She died saving your people. She was a hero, and you are a hero too. But she is not coming back." And in shelters across Charvel, people heard that cry and wondered what it meant. Sarah stayed with the dragon through the night. She continued treating his wounds, applying fresh gel every few hours. She downloaded ancient Charvel songs from the archives, healing songs that dragon keepers once sang. Her small speaker played the music, and Drithes responded to melodies he had not heard in millennia. By morning, the dragon's breathing had become easier. The swelling in his shoulder had decreased. The pain medication and treatment were working, but Sarah knew the physical wounds were not the only ones that needed healing. She was checking her supplies when her communicator buzzed. Thessic's voice came through urgently. "Sarah, the military is coming. They have tracked your location. You have maybe 3 hours before they arrive with heavy weapons. The council has ordered Dreethes destroyed." "Then we have 3 hours to change their minds." "But you told me that some Charvel elders still remember the old ways. Can you contact them? Can you bring them here?" "If they want to honor their ancestors, they need to remember what their ancestors knew. Dreethes is not a monster. He is a guardian who woke up in a world that forgot him. He protected your people once. Maybe he can again if they give him a chance." Then Thessic replied, "I will try, but Sarah, if this fails, both you and the dragon will die." Sarah counted 12 heavily armed vessels forming a circle around the healing grounds. Their weapon systems glowed with charging energy, ready to fire at any moment. The morning sun reflected off their metal hulls like mirrors of approaching doom. Dreethes sensed the danger. The dragon rose to his feet, wings spreading wide in a defensive posture. His earlier calmness vanished, replaced by the tension of a creature preparing to protect himself. Sarah's treatment had helped him heal, but she knew he was still too weak to survive a full military assault. "Easy," Sarah said, placing her hand on the dragon's scaled leg. "Please stay calm, I have a plan." Sarah's entire plan depended on Thessic convincing the Charvel elders to come here, to face their fear and remember their history. She checked her communicator for the 100th time. Still no message. A voice boomed from the lead military ship speakers. "Humyn Sarah Chen, you are ordered to evacuate immediately. You have 5 minutes to leave the area before we commence firing." "He is injured and confused. Give me time to prove it." "We will not risk more lives because of your foolish sympathy. He is a guardian, not a destroyer." She transmitted everything to the military ships. The medical scans showing Dreethes' old wounds, the recordings of his search for Sylvath, the historical documents about the plague and how the dragons saved the Charvel people. She sent images of the carved stone showing the bond between dragons and the ancient Charvel. "Look at the evidence," she pleaded. "He avoided populated areas when he could. He came to the healing grounds because this was his home. He is searching for his lost mate, not attacking your people. Please just look at what I found." Dreethes made a low warning growl. The dragon could feel the hostile intent from the ships. His body tensed, muscles bunching in preparation. Sarah knew what would happen if he attacked. The military would fire, the dragon would fight back, and the resulting battle would destroy everything for kilometers around, including the capital city visible in the distance. 3 minutes, announced the commander. Then Sarah's communicator buzzed. Thessic's voice came through, breathless with excitement. "Look to the south, we are coming." They moved slowly, cautiously, but they kept coming. As they drew closer, Sarah could see elderly Charvel faces through the windows. The elders had come. The military commander's voice returned, now confused. "What is happening? Civilian vehicles are entering the combat zone." "They must evacuate immediately." Thessic led them, his old scales gleaming in the morning light. "Commander," Thessic's voice rang out across all channels, "you will not fire on this dragon while we stand here. Move away now." One old female named Yesith began to sing in the ancient Charvel language. Her voice was thin and wavering with age, but the melody was pure and clear. It was one of the healing songs Sarah had played for Dreethes the night before. The dragon's head turned toward the sound. His defensive posture relaxed slightly. He recognized the melody from his memories. Another elder joined the song, then another. Soon all 20 elders were singing together, their voices blending into harmonies that had not been heard on Charvel for 3,000 years. The song spoke of friendship, of healing, of the bond between two species who had once saved each other. Dreethes listened, his enormous body slowly lowering from its defensive stance. The dragon's eyes closed as the music washed over him. He made soft sounds in his throat, as if trying to sing along with melodies he barely remembered. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. This was what she had hoped for, what she had believed was possible. The past and present were meeting in this moment, fear giving way to remembered love. 2 minutes, the commander said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Thessic walked forward, closer to the dragon. He moved slowly, showing no fear despite his frail body. In his hands, he carried something wrapped in old cloth. When he unwrapped it, Sarah saw a small carved stone, ancient and precious. "Dreethes," Thesic said in the old language, holding up the stone. Guardian, friend, protector, we remember. We have always remembered, even when we pretended to forget because memory hurt too much. For a long moment, the ancient dragon and the elderly scholar looked at each other, two beings connected across millennia. Then Drethys did something that made everyone gasp. The dragon gently touched his snout to Thesic's outstretched hand, the same gesture of trust and friendship shown in the ancient carvings. 1 minute, whispered the commander, but Sarah could hear the change in his voice. He had seen it too, the moment when fear became understanding. Sarah stepped forward to join Thesic and the elders. Commander, you have a choice. You can destroy a creature who once saved this moon, or you can give him a chance to become a guardian again. Drethys is not our enemy. He never was. He is just lost and needs help finding his way home. The ash had cleared from Charvel's skies. The evacuated villages had welcomed their people home. And in the ruins where Drethys had once searched desperately for his lost mate, something beautiful was being built. Sarah stood on the balcony of the new dragon sanctuary, watching the construction crews work below. Charvel builders worked alongside human engineers, combining ancient designs with modern technology. They were recreating the healing grounds as they had existed 3,000 years ago, but better, stronger, ready for a new era. The eastern pavilion is nearly complete, said Thesic, joining her on the balcony. The old scholar had become Sarah's closest friend during these months. The medical facilities will be the finest on the moon. His shoulder is almost completely healed, but he still needs therapy twice a week. Drethys had gained weight, his scales now gleamed with health, and the confusion in his eyes had been replaced with purpose. The dragon landed gently in the central courtyard, careful not to damage any of the new construction. Young Charvel children ran toward him, laughing and shouting greetings. Their parents no longer pulled them back in fear. Everyone had learned what Sarah discovered that first day at the ruins. Drethys was gentle with those who showed him kindness. A small girl named Vessa climbed onto the dragon's foreleg, settling into a spot between his scales that had become her favorite seat. Drethys, did you see anything interesting on your flight? She asked in the common language that everyone now used around the dragon. Drethys made a soft rumbling sound. The one Sarah had learned meant contentment. He could not speak, but the communication device Sarah's team had created allowed him to express simple ideas through tones and patterns. The dragon touched his snout gently to Vessa's head, making her giggle. Sarah descended to the courtyard, carrying her medical kit. Time for your therapy session, she called up to Drethys. The dragon obediently lowered himself, extending his left shoulder for examination. Sarah worked through the stretches and movements that kept scar tissue from limiting his flight. Drethys endured the treatment patiently, occasionally making sounds of discomfort, but never pulling away. You are doing so well, Sarah praised him, applying fresh healing gel to the areas that still showed slight inflammation. Another month and you will be completely healed. They want Drethys to take on an official role as guardian of the outer colonies. Drethys has proven he can sense seismic disturbances days before they happen. If he patrols those areas, he could warn people in time to evacuate. What seemed like random flight patterns to humans were actually Drethys reading the geological story written in the moon's crust. Sarah translated the proposal to Drethys using their communication system. The dragon's response was immediate and clear, agreement mixed with something that felt like joy. He had been searching for a purpose, a way to honor Sylvath's memory by protecting the people she had died saving. The following week, Drethys made his first official flight as guardian of Charvel. Sarah accompanied him in a small ship, monitoring his vitals and documenting everything. They flew to the outer colonies, remote settlements built near active volcanic regions. The colonists came out of their homes to watch the dragon circle overhead. Where once they would have run in terror, now they waved and cheered. Children pointed excitedly at the massive creature who had become a symbol of protection rather than fear. On the third day of patrol, Drethys suddenly changed course, flying urgently toward a volcano called Mount Thessar. His communication device transmitted warning tones. Sarah checked her instruments and her breath caught. Seismic activity was spiking rapidly beneath the mountain. An eruption was imminent. Colony base, this is Sarah Chen, she transmitted urgently. Evacuate Mount Thessar settlement immediately. Major eruption in approximately 2 hours. Thank you, Guardian Drethys. Lava poured down the mountainside, consuming the settlement that had stood empty just minutes before. But no one was hurt, because Drethys had warned them. News of the dragon's warning spread across Charvel. The few remaining skeptics who still feared Drethys became believers. The creature they had wanted destroyed had now saved thousands of lives. More months passed. Drethys prevented 2 more evacuations, each time giving people enough warning to reach safety. The dragon became a beloved figure across the moon. Artists created statues of him. Children sang songs about the guardian who protected them. The council officially declared the day of his awakening a holiday, Remembrance Day, celebrating the renewal of the ancient bond between Charvel and dragons. Sarah received many offers to return to human space, to accept prestigious positions and awards for her work. But she declined them all. Her place was here, on Charvel, helping Drethys and documenting the rebirth of an ancient friendship. One evening, as the sun set over the completed dragon sanctuary, Sarah stood beside Drethys in the courtyard. The dragon gazed at the carved memorial stone that now stood at the sanctuary's center. On it were written 2 names, Drethys and Sylveth, together forever in memory. She would be proud of you, Sarah said softly. You have honored her sacrifice by protecting her people. You have become exactly what you were always meant to be. The dragon lowered his head, and Sarah placed her hand on his scarred but healing scales. In the distance, young Vesa and her friends played in the sanctuary gardens, laughing without fear. Charvel families walked the paths where dragons and their people had once lived together. And overhead, the stars came out one by one, witnessing the proof that compassion could heal even the deepest wounds of time. The story that had begun with ash and terror had ended with hope and renewal. The ancient dragon had awakened in fury, yes, but through the courage of one human who refused to see a monster, and the wisdom of elders who chose to remember rather than forget, fury had transformed into friendship. Drethys was home, and so was Sarah. The guardian had returned, and the bond between species, broken for 3,000 years, was finally restored. Not through force or fear, but through the simple power of understanding, patience, and love. The end, Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.